Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. This is our Emil Amok's Takeout. My takes on all things considerable. You know, there's only one thing considerable today. We're still talking about the Trump verdicts and the fallout. I spent some time to think about what the verdicts really meant. All 34 of them. I did a show yesterday, like right at the time that the verdicts were released, and it's really funny because all the commentators said, "Well, where were you?" This is one of those "where were you" kind of moments, and I guess it is. I mean, I was waiting to see, is it possible a lot of people who were in the courtroom, for the proceedings up to yesterday were saying things like, we don't know. It could go either way. But, you could tell when the jury asked for certain things, what was going to happen. So I wrote my column this morning, and I'm going to read from my column that I published in the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund blog, aldef.org/blog. And it's titled, Before AANHPI month ends, because this is the final day, May 31st, a former president with a racist legal strategy. That's right, I said a racist legal strategy becomes a convicted felon. It's true. It's true. I mean, history was made on the eve of the last day of Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. That would be yesterday, the eve of today, the last day, because this is the month we celebrate our inclusion in society. And what did we see? We saw history. It was the first time ever a former president became a convicted felon. And without a doubt, it was fueled by an unconscious but racist Asian twist. I'll explain in a sec. But first, May 30th, 2024, Thursday, shall forever be remembered in American history as the day Donald Trump was finally held accountable. And when it also can be said that the former president is truly not above the law. Now, sounds cliche. Oh, no man's above the law. We finally saw it because, he isn't called Teflon Don for nothing. The guy seems to escape almost everything. But after just 12 hours of deliberations, a 7-man, 5-woman jury, and let's hope they stay anonymous and no one tries to dox them and no one tries to do any harm to them. They are ordinary people, a 12-person jury in New York, a jury of Trump's peers, although Trump would say, "Oh, I'm peerless." But this 7-man, 5-woman jury found Trump guilty of 34 felony charges for falsifying business documents, the checks he signed, that were called legal fees. And that's a key thing. They were called legal fees and not reimbursements for payments of $130,000 to a porn star. The payments were intended to cover up a Trump affair with the adult film actress Stormy Daniels, a saga Trump didn't want any voting citizen to know about so close to the 2016 election. And that was his motivation after the release of the salacious Access Hollywood tape. You remember that. It was released around my birthday of that year. I remember. And people were saying, "Oh, poor Billy Bush," or poor Donald Trump. The Access Hollywood tape, it grabbed headlines and showed the world exactly how Trump felt about women. Now, Trump, who likes to talk about how things are rigged against him, thought he knew how to rig things in his favor in this case. The payments were the cover-up and the fix, part of a catch-and-kill scheme enabled by his friend and accomplice, the National Enquirer's David Pecker. Pecker testified he essentially was part of the Trump campaign, and then there was the testimony by another Trump ally. And this is significant. Hope Hicks, right? If you recall, if you watched the trial, she tearfully revealed that Trump knew about the payments. He knew about the fix. Because the payments were meant to keep the electorate from knowing the truth, it turned this act, which some people like to say, oh, misdemeanor, reimbursements, legal fee. What difference does it make? A big difference. Because it was intended to keep the electorate from knowing the truth, it turned the act into a federal election crime. And that in turn made the $130,000 payment to Daniels an illegal campaign donation. And now, 8 years later, the overwhelming evidence, including 34 checks with Trump's signature, proved guilt beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. Now, where's the Asian angle, Emil? Well, here's the Asian angle. It comes in Trump's defense team saying that their strategy was to employ a, quote, death by 1,000 cuts defense. This is according to reports by the CNN legal correspondent Paula Reed, quoting Trump insiders. Death by 1,000 cuts defense. Now, you might say, what's the big deal about that, Emil? When I first heard that, I literally stopped in my tracks. I mean, if that was Donald Trump's strategy, it was definitely racist. As racist as if to say someone welched on a bet, or was Jewed on a sale, or gypped in a sale, or taken by a paddy wagon to jail. Those are all ethnic references that no one who is sensitive uses anymore. And it was just obvious to me that death by 1,000 cuts is Asian in origin. It's only considered innocent talk by the ignorant. Now, if you look it up, death by 1,000 cuts is the English translation of the phrase Ling Chi, known as a form of torture used in China starting from the 10th century. And Donald Trump could have said anything. His lawyers could say, oh, we're using a kitchen sink defense. That's not derogatory toward any race. The kitchen sink defense, maybe the plumbers. I don't know. I've heard people say, oh, the spaghetti defense, which is kind of racist Italian, maybe, throwing something against the wall and seeing if it sticks. But Paula Reed of CNN said the Trump people called it the 1,000 cuts, the death of 1,000 cuts strategy. And maybe that was the 1,000 little attacks that Todd Blanche of the Trump defense used in the case to attack the credibility of the only person they saw as relevant, the key witness in the case, former Trump attorney fixer Michael Cohen. Now, Cohen on the witness stand was pilloried by the defense as the GLOAT, G-L-O-A-T, the greatest liar of all time. But everything Cohen said was corroborated by other witnesses, notably the Inquirer's Pecker, testimony that the jury would revisit during deliberations, and apparently Pecker trumped Cohen, pun intended, in the jury's eyes, and that led to the decision to convict. That was key, and also the jurors wanting an explanation of the rain metaphor. That helped. The rain metaphor is the idea that it rained overnight and the sidewalks are wet, and one can infer that it rained even if we didn't exactly directly see raindrops. And that way a direct link to Trump wasn't necessary. And Trump didn't testify, although maybe he should have. He says he wanted to. But of course we know that if he would have perjured himself or gotten into some kind of trouble. But he didn't testify, and it really is against the rules. The Fifth Amendment prevents his lack of testimony from ever being considered. So let's just throw out whether he testifies or not. The jury didn't need a direct link to Trump. The rain metaphor was enough. And Pecker's testimony was enough. There was enough to infer. And it didn't matter that the death by 1,000 cuts strategy to go after Cohen was used, because Cohen was rendered irrelevant because he was already corroborated by other witnesses. So that's how the jury was able to proceed unanimously. And so now where are we? With 34 convictions, felony convictions with Trump. We're waiting for the sentencing and inevitable appeals. Of course, it's not over. There will no doubt be appeals. And despite a conviction, Trump is still allowed to go to the Republican convention and continue his run to be president again, which is astonishing, but it's not in the Constitution that says a felon can't run. But it shows that no one ever expected the president of our great democracy to be so criminal or to be so shameless. Not in all the more than 200 years of our history. And yet here's Trump carrying his felony convictions on his chest like a beauty pageant sash, a string of Fs, 34 of them. Indeed, according to his MO, he is fundraising off it, raising millions while calling himself a political prisoner. He is nothing of the sort. He is a convicted felon who should be treated like anyone else who is a convicted felon. And why should being a former president give him any sense of privilege? You know, if any Asian American or any person of color were in his place, there would be no talk of leniency to such a degree. For his conviction, Trump could face up to 4 years by some estimates. As a first-time offender, he may get up to 6 months, maybe. But he's still facing the balance of more than 90 felony counts in these 3 other criminal cases that he finds himself in. Plus, Trump shows no remorse. He had his fist raised in defiance as he passed supporters last night in front of Trump Tower. Is he likely to commit the same crimes again? I think it's safe to say yes. We probably can bet that he would commit the same crimes again. So I think it's just time for the 30% of Asian America who may have voted for Trump in the past to reconsider any ongoing support. We can hope. A Marist poll this week found that the vast majority, 68% of Trump voters, say if Trump is convicted, it would not make any difference. Well, that's what worries me, because it should. But that 68% would look at this and say, oh, no harm, no foul. That's our national problem. This should be a great day for our democracy and the rule of law. A former president was found guilty by a jury of his peers. And yet there are people, notably the so-called law and order types, who hypocritically do not respect justice unless it suits them, and instead are now plotting for revenge in the name of Trump. I mean, that we are not all unified in praising our democracy and the rule of law by Thursday's verdict is really the most troubling for our country. Things are not back to normal. They would if Trump would do a truly extraordinary thing to put the country first. Trump could step down as the presumptive Republican leader and not run. That's the way our founding fathers would have wanted it. But that's just my patriotic fantasy. That's not the way it is in 2024. And so on this final day of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we count our blessings. Take this time to reflect on what it means to be American in this great democracy where justice can work. We saw it happen on Thursday. And let's be thankful that Ling Chi, aka Death of a Thousand Cuts, did not work as a legal strategy for Donald Trump. That's my column. You can read it on the ALDEF blog, aaldef.org/blog. I really want to be happier, but I can't help but be brought down by seeing the lies by Republican operatives who are on the shows. And thank goodness for people like George Conway. I'm not necessarily a big Conway fan, but George Conway was on CNN calling out Scott Jennings, the Republican operative who is now the right-wing mouthpiece, an apologist for Trump, Conway was saying, hey, Scott, you're a liar. And there was CNN trying to say, oh, hey, we're all colleagues here. But if you're a supporter of Trump and you think something was wrong with the verdict, you're just lying. You are just lying. We'll see how it plays out in appeals, but there's going to be a sentencing on 7/11, July 11th. And then, of course, Trump was talking today, and that was really that was really rich. This is from The Independent. This is how Great Britain is looking at us. The Independent headline: Convicted felon Trump rails against Biden and fascist America at unhinged news conference. Fascist America, Trump is called. This is a result of fascism? No, this is the law. Now, this is the thing. This is Trump's MO. This is what he does. All the things that he's guilty of, he accuses the other people of doing. And everyone believes Trump, who is a ultra MAGA type, because that's what it is. It's almost like a cultist thing. But just the first few paragraphs from The Independent. This is one of the papers in Great Britain. Donald Trump gave an unhinged speech at Trump Tower the morning after he became the first criminally convicted U.S. president, railing against the, quote, fascist state and attacking his enemies, including the judge who oversaw his hush money trial and the witnesses who testified against him. So, of course, what Trump is setting up, he's saying, hey, look, I'm fighting fascism. They're fascists against me. I'm not fascist. Speaking to an audience of reporters and supporters in the lobby of his eponymous, that means it's named after him, Fifth Avenue skyscraper in New York City, the building where he formed the conspiracy that figured prominently in the evidence against him, Trump falsely claimed that the president, Joe Biden, could put an end to the case that was brought against him by New York County District Attorney Alvin Bragg in New York court. So this is the reason why a lot of people just cut away from the Trump speech, because he was making all these false accusations. But I think it's worth looking at for as long as you can stomach to see what Trump is going to be like now that he's been convicted. Trump said, quote, we have a president and a group of fascists that don't want to do anything about it because they could right now today. He could stop it, but he's not. Well, that's false. He can't stop it. State court, not federal court. Trump also hit out at the judge who oversaw his trial and who will sentence him for the crimes on July 11th. New York Supreme Court Justice Juan Merchan, calling him the devil and labeling him highly conflicted because the judge's daughter works in Democratic politics. He falsely claimed this. Any news report of that speech will say, hey, this is what Trump said. It's a false, he's putting out these false narratives, falsely claiming that Mr. Biden, not the judge, was responsible for the gag order against him. Quote, this is what Trump said, quote, I'm the leading person for president and I'm under a gag order by a man that can't put two sentences together, given by a court, and they are in total conjunction with the White House and the DOJ, Department of Justice. Just so you understand, this is all done by Biden and his people, he said, which is a lie. It is a lie. And we must say that as a public service. It's a lie what Donald Trump is saying about Biden. Trump continued attacking Mr. Biden as dumb and dishonest while accusing him without evidence of being a Manchurian candidate and repeating multiple lies about the president's family. We're living in a fascist state, said Donald Trump, which I'm sure he's going to use as his justification to bring about his own fascist state should he win. And in November. This is why it's important to look over all the reporting and the transcripts of the trial, look over what's happened, put the statements of Donald Trump in a kind of arm's length, because they're full of lies. Let me bring up my friend of the show, professor of ethnic studies, Asian American studies, political. Well, he does Asian American politics, San Francisco State University, College of Ethnic Studies, professor emeritus. Uh, Dan Gonzalez. Dan, thank you very much for being on the show.
No. Yeah, thanks for having me. Welcome back home.
Yeah,
That was,
it's good to
that
be
was
back
quite an
after.
East Coast. That was quite an East Coast stint.
Yeah, it was good. It was good to be in Orlando. I'm glad to be back. I was following the trial all throughout. I was doing shows at night, watching the trial during the day, or what we were able to watch in the trial. The secondhand uh,
Yeah.
information. But so, what did you make of the verdict, and what did you make of or verdicts, and what did you make of Trump's speech today?
Well, his speech today was again a typical performance by
Yeah,
Mr. Trump. So, as you said, he did his usual routine. The question is again: is this the 11th violation of the gag order, or the 12th? Does the
yeah,
gag order still apply? But and the answer is yes, because the sentencing isn't over yet.
yeah.
But then the question will be, when the sentence is settled, will the gag order apply? Because he, after the sentencing, he can appeal,
Mm,
and there is the potential for a whole series of appeals,
yeah,
depending on who decides they want to appeal. Obviously, if he gets at the state level, it's a state conviction. So the first level of appeal is going to be the state appellate court, and then the potential for the state supreme court or superior court, as in New York they name their courts a little differently than we do here. Okay, here in California, superior is basically the trial level, right? Yeah, but so that could slow everything down in terms of putting him in jail, and all of that will happen most likely after the election. That's because appeals take time, you know.
and now if it's at the state level, New York, even if he's president, if he should win, he still could be.
A convict,
Yeah, he still
and
could be
subject
subject.
to, yes, and subject to imprisonment, but he probably wouldn't be forced to do that because he's president. So what most likely would happen is, um, when his term ends, if he ever leaves the presidency, some people think that he might not leave.
Yeah,
It's not only Robert De Niro that believes that. uh, I the people who are threatening Robert De Niro at this point for him coming out with his rather bombastic statement, anti-Trump statement, right? I guess they didn't see Taxi Driver, right?
yeah.
But they ought to go back and watch that film. Anyway,
Well,
the
he has a right to say anything, and it wasn't all that unhinged when compared to Trump. He was just very passionate, and I thought what Robert De Niro said was actually important.
yeah,
Important.
it was important. The question that some of the, again, lily livered liberals said was, no, it's improper. You're reducing yourself to the same level as the people who went up there and said that, members of Congress,
Yeah,
right? When up, that was disgusting. I mean, those people have no level, right, of understanding the seriousness of the
yeah,
positions that they hold, and not just the political import, right,
yeah,
but the legal import of the positions that they hold. And what they did was really close to the edge. As far as I'm concerned, they should be subjected to a gag order.
yeah.
Right? I
Well,
mean,
well, also, well, here's the thing: if Trump is convicted, and you're a high level officer in the American government, and you're saying all these things trashing our justice system.
well, you're essentially repeating everything Trump says.
Yeah,
They're
and
just parodying everything, literally
yeah,
parodying everything Trump says.
yeah, and what it does do is, if the paper cuts defense strategy really becomes a paper cuts kind of political strategy, because you have all these people who should know better, slowly but surely taking apart the justice system in the United States by casting aspersions on its veracity, on its effectiveness, and saying it's they're really saying it's BS. And what it does is it takes our country down a notch, and they're the leaders. They're,
I think it does more than taking. Okay, first of all, let's establish this.
yeah,
More than 50% of this country, whether or not the people are voters, already distrust government.
right,
I would say easily the majority of Americans have different degrees or levels of distrust in government, right? It may be a lack of satisfaction and an actual, based on actual experience, right, in local government, state government, or at the national level. Most of the time, it's the local and state issues of government that people feel most directly, okay? And so they may not even understand the relationship between the federal government and the state government, much the same way that they don't understand what the president's office, the executive office, is capable of doing. For example, the issue of Gaza and the role of the IDF, right? Uh, he's got no control over that. The
yeah,
most that he can do is do diplomatic kinds of activity and perhaps even withhold sending armaments to Israel that might be used for mass attack, mass civilian losses in
right. So
Gaza. That's the most that he can do. But he gets the blame for that. And we have a large segment of the younger generation, including college educated people, right? And contemporary college students who are saying, I'm not going to vote for the guy because he's selling us out. He's short on Gaza. He's not doing enough. Okay.
yeah, you're talking
An
about Biden.
African American male population that's saying I don't know what he's done. He's not doing enough. How do you know he's not doing enough if you don't know what he's done?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You're talking about Biden and the backlash against
Yes.
Putin.
Yes.
So
Well, but it's more than backlash. This is all preset stage. That's the point I'm trying to make.
yeah,
That there's already a wide ranging disposition
yeah,
in American society that's anti-government. Okay,
right,
so that's what makes it really easy for the Republicans to do what they're doing. That's what makes it really easy for Trump to do what he does. Okay,
yeah,
and this is disheartening to both sides or all sides of the political equations. Okay, and the result that is that I fear that even if people don't vote for Trump, they won't vote for Biden. They won't come out at all. Okay.
right. And their estimation of government and of politics in America drops even lower.
Yes, yes, which makes it entirely possible that let's say, notwithstanding threats from the right of physical violence, right? And remember, there were lesser times in the '80s when there was a great deal of destructive violence and committed from the right. There were assassination attempts committed from the right. And I'm really surprised that people aren't making those connections now.
Well,
That
we're
the
in a
system
dangerous.
it's different now. It's worse now
Yeah, I
than it
mean
was
it's
back then. And then we had all of these attacks that came from the right. And remember when the Oklahoma City Murrah building attack
right.
happened, which up until New York City and the Twin Towers, right? That was the greatest single terrorist attack
Right.
in the United States. Okay,
Timothy McVeigh. Yeah.
with over 200 people, including children, right, who were at the daycare center, and so that came from the right. And what was people's immediate reaction? On the street, I was hearing this: "We got to get the ragheads." And
Yeah.
the term ragheads is a racist derogatory term against Arabs that was brought back from the Middle East by American military.
Yeah.
Okay, that just like Gook was brought back, from Vietnam. Dink was brought back from Vietnam. Google was brought back from the Philippines. All of that. Okay, so that's part of the dehumanization war, right? That makes it easier to kill the other, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's been going on. And so, beyond just the specific thousand cuts, Trump has literally said, and Republicans won't go there because it's a bit too far for them. They know that they're going to get hurt by a certain base of their constituency. Um, but Trump has said specifically, you got Chinese coming in,
Right. Well,
that
we already have laws that are trying to, people
exactly.
trying to pass laws in
But
Florida.
he makes it sound that these people are coming in are criminals, and he says that he's been saying that about Mexicans and Latinos generally. He's talking about Middle Eastern people coming across the southern border, which is true. Okay,
Yeah.
and he says that most recently they're coming out of jails and they're coming out of mental institutions.
Yeah.
Okay, again, that's projection, and it kind of shows you where he thinks he's at.
Yeah. You know what bothers me is that the saving grace in all this is if Republicans and Democrats together look at the verdicts and say, "Thank goodness democracy works. Thank goodness there's a justice system." And I'm not seeing the unity. I mean, I saw Woodward on camera in an interview saying, "Well, it shows that America is more united than we think," and I think that
You're
was
talking
just
about
yeah,
Bob
Bob
Woodward.
Woodward. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
I think he was just being a little too, uh, rosy.
Rosie,
Yeah,
Rosie, exactly. I was going to say the same word.
yeah, rosy in his
Yeah.
picture because
Oh yeah.
uh,
Oh yeah.
like yeah,
Paul,
the
Pollyannish.
jury, yeah,
That
the
is so
jury.
naively Pollyannish, man.
Yeah, the jury was unanimous. It was a New York jury, as a lot of conservatives want to point out, but it
Yeah.
was unanimous. And but the thing is, I would be um, with Woodward and being rosy about this if I saw more Republicans stand up and say, "Thank God we got justice. Now let's move on." And you know what? Maybe this guy Trump is not our guy, and yet we see Republicans almost becoming more reinforced in their view of Trump.
Yeah.
And if we see Trump raising money. It's
Well, they
just
have a hard time. Most recently also the same speech, right? That you talk about fascism. You raised it,
yeah,
right? He
yeah,
said it's a fascist society. Again, projection,
yeah,
right? I mean, he loves fascism. You
yeah.
know,
He's
it's one of the few books he ever freaking read. I don't know if he ever read the whole damn thing, right? But he knew what
yeah,
Mein Kampf meant. So
yeah. No,
yeah.
for Trump, it's another F word he likes. He likes felonies and he likes fascism. He likes felonies and fascism, and
Yeah,
there's another F word in there too.
fornication. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah,
Everything, everything. I mean, whatever F words you want, man.
yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
so I mean, it's
I think
just
it's really There should be Republicans, right? But they're all going to be people who have been kicked out of the Republican Party, okay, and who are daily suffering again continuous threats,
yeah.
right,
Although
of violence.
I saw George Conway, um, you know, really stand up to Scott
Yeah, but
Jennings.
he's out. He's out. He's an outie.
Well,
He is
Lincoln,
not a Republican anymore. And
right?
on MSNBC, when he appears on MSNBC, they state that.
Yeah,
Okay, so I think you're right. I want to go back and I hope I recorded that part where he really hammers. Uh, you
yeah,
know,
yeah. Scott
uh,
Jennings.
yeah, Jennings.
I just think the Lincoln Project, those guys. I wish there were more of them because we need a lot more Republicans just to see the light and say, "Hey, this guy done." I mean, after the verdicts, after the 34th verdict, you got to say Donald Trump is unfit to be president.
Yeah,
He's
they
unfit.
can't see. They can't come out. I mean, they really can't come out because they know they're going to end up like Cheney, right, and Kimnister. They're gonna. That's how they're going to end up. And so if
Yeah,
they want to stay in their positions, see, first and foremost, people these days, the politicians, elected officials, right, more than anything else, they want to continue their careers. Okay,
yeah,
so conservatives, especially conservatives at the street level, right?
mm,
True conservatives and also radicalized, authoritarian, desirous conservatives, right?
yeah,
They say term limits, all right,
yeah,
but term limits is a threat. to the existing order because they know they'll be out. There'll be a time when they'll have to leave. And
Yeah,
all you got to do is look what happens in California with term limits.
yeah.
And
It all
you get a whole new generation of people, and it's amateur hour,
Yeah,
right?
it's all yeah, and then you have people going. It's musical chairs. You go from,
Yep.
well, I think I was a state treasurer. Let me try to be controller. Let me try to be.
Yes. Yes.
I was a supervisor. Let me try to be. I'll go to the assembly. I'll go to and they just desperately want to stay in
As long as they
public.
can.
Yeah,
And
and it
the legislature has made a little bit of concession to that, right? Because they extended by a couple of years the time that you can have consecutive offices, right, in different offices. So
yeah
it doesn't it really isn't a good idea.
yeah
But, you have the vote. If the person that you voted for before is a stinker, vote him out.
yeah
The problem is that we have the reification of, I mean, polarization is too mild a word, right?
yeah
There's this huge chasm of separation, and people think that it's legitimate, that, and then they say that it's co-equal, right? That both sides do it, and there's a
yeah.
co-equal problem.
And
And
I
I'm
don't think so.
sorry, that is just not true.
Yeah. Well, see, this is the thing. One side lies, one side lies a little more. It just the whole system uh, tends to not inspire a lot of confidence to people who want to believe in representative government, and then they see how it works, and then they shy away and say, "Look, I don't want anything to do with it." And usually, these are the people who are they want to be involved, but they see how it is really kind of corrupt, or how it's just not. I know it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And then these are our leaders.
So the worst excuse that I heard, coming out of Asian American communities
Mhm,
over the years is one, our vote doesn't matter, okay,
mhm.
and then the other one was it doesn't make any change. That they mean the same thing.
Yeah,
They mean the same thing. The, for me, for them to remain aloof and uninvolved, okay.
yeah,
And then, so they take that position. That's the easy out, right? I don't have to be involved. I don't. I've had students say, even with 3/4 of the semester gone in a politics and law oriented course, say, I'm really just not into politics. I don't want to. So they do the exercises just for the sake of fulfilling, right, the requirements for the course, but they just don't want to get engaged. And
yeah,
so when I show, even after I show them that they are being directly affected by government policy, they
yeah.
still say, "I just don't want to be engaged." And I tell them, as a citizen, I think you have an obligation to participate.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I'm
they don't
talking
see the
about
self
obligation.
interest.
Exactly.
Yeah, they don't see the self interest until it hits them in the face, and then they see everyone else acting selfishly. I mean, that was the point I was trying to make in my column, that if Donald Trump, for once, stopped thinking about himself and started thinking about the country,
But he
and started
can't.
thinking that he would
He
step
can't.
down.
He can't. He is, you know, as much as I think they rely on her too much. His niece, the psychologist, right, the PhD,
Oh
she
yeah, Mary
nails it.
Trump.
She nails it every time.
What?
The guy's on the line between sociopath and psychopath. I've
Oh yeah.
had this argument with people who have consulted with psychiatrists and have gone undertaken therapy and all that, and
Mhm.
some of them insist that he's not a psychopath. And I said, look, do you think he has control over himself? In minimal terms,
Yeah, I
there's
I
only
think.
certain
Well, he was
areas
off.
where he has control.
He was off prompter today. I think he could use a 5 week meditation course. I think he,
I think he needs shock therapy.
or maybe some kind of, yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
I just was disappointed when I knew that he was going to speak today, but I thought he would
you're
have learned his
disappointed.
lesson.
You were disappointed. Why?
Well, I thought he would have learned his lesson and would have kept it
Oh,
in a
jeez.
sword, but that
How about Mr. Rosie? You better get in there. You go sit with Bob.
yeah.
Go
Well,
sit with Bob, Emil.
I have hope. I have hope in this country
Oh no!
because
Oh
I'm
my
telling you
God!
something. It doesn't look good. And here's the thing: we mentioned this earlier, but this newer generation of people, they're down on Biden. They see Trump. They like Trump because he doesn't give up and he just is. He lies and he's like, uh, you know, he's just incessant. And for some people, oh yeah, we don't like fascism unless he's our fascist. If he's our fascist, if he's our mad dog, yeah. I mean, that's the
Well,
only way that you can side with a fascist. You say, well, he's, I don't like fascism in general, but he's my fascist,
yeah,
and he'll
right.
do what I
Yeah,
and and I. That's
Well, do
that.
you think? Okay, let's cut to the chase, man.
Yeah,
Okay, let's say the guy wins.
I
Okay,
I hope not. But
well, yeah, me too. But
yeah,
America, just like this freaking, the jury, right? The voting public, particularly the voting public in 5 or 6 states, right?
yeah,
And that's another thing, right? Well, we'll get to that. But there, what this whole experience with Trump, and even under the Obama administration, and all of the attacks by the Republican Party when they had a majority of control, right, in both houses. And that was for the last 6 years of the Obama administration. You remember how that went?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
and I was saying in my classes, I was asking the question: how much of this resistance is really motivated by race? The fact that this guy is the first half black, but black enough
mhm,
president of the United States. And people were kind of in between on it. They think, well, there are reasons that they could be against him that don't have anything to do with race. And I said, well, how many people are going to admit that it's about race? Okay, even if it is, and uh, when you have people who say, I don't see color, what do you
yeah.
think? Do you believe them?
They see color. They see
I
color.
don't see color. Yeah,
Yeah,
really. Well, I do, and I tell them
yeah.
I do. You know,
Well,
uh,
I think that that's what's fueling the rise. When you see people uh, just blindly following Trump, it's to preserve a sense of
it,
that watered down white supremacy that we're left with.
it's class, race, and misogyny.
Yeah,
It's really a lot of this stuff is reactionary, anti-woman, anti-gay, LGBTQ,
yeah,
everything. You
yeah,
know, that's what this stuff is, and it's cloaked for millions of people in Christianity,
yeah.
or
Well,
their
that's true.
their version of Christianity.
And the Christians will gladly go down with the sinner rather than see the light and say, "Hey, let's come together and make a perfect democracy here." They'd rather side with Trump because they think Trump's going to win. If they sense that Trump was a loser, they would dump him in a second. Don't you think?
Uh, yeah, I kind of get where you're at.
If the polls show that people had a moral sense and could not stand someone like a convicted felon and liar like Trump, and they raced away from him, they would abandon him. But if
if
people,
enough people, yeah, if you talk about polls, once again, I have problems.
oh yeah, I
The question is always, what the hell question did you ask?
yeah
What question did you ask, and how did you ask it? Okay, and what universe are these people in? The people who are being polled. So I really have problems with that. And there's a myriad of polls.
yeah
All of a
yeah
sudden, every freaking university is trying to pair up with a media company in order to run polls because they could get money out of it. And that's a
right.
whole nother story again, right? Is
Oh
the
yeah, look,
funding, the
and
funding of education.
I use polls sparingly. I like to talk about them, but only if we understand what they really are.
That's right.
Snapshots in time. They give us some temporary data about where things may have been at the point when they made the data, but it could be totally different now. but it gives us a sense of a trend. I mean, if you look, globally at a poll and see how, how things move, you see, you might sense a trend, and it gives you a way of talking about something that, otherwise you're just, everyone is just guessing. Everyone in the pundit class is just guessing what's going to happen, like the verdict. I
Yeah,
mean,
well, so
good.
my problem with the polls is I agree with everything you just said about polls, okay?
Yeah,
But my problem with the polls is people don't really pay attention, okay, to what's going on in real terms, close attention until, God, August at best, right?
right,
And
right,
September and October for sure, right?
right,
So there has to be about a 10-week proximity to voting time,
right.
and then people are starting to pay attention. Okay, so the polls in the meantime are the way that people see what they think is happening, right? And
Mhm.
so, as you say, if they think that he looks like a loser, because and what, how would we determine that he looks like a loser by polls? He'd have to lose 10, 15%,
Yeah.
over a period of a week or two or something like that, so that it makes a big splash and everybody notices. Okay.
The thing is, there's no moral outrage that a man who could be convicted as a felon for 34 counts is somehow seen as fit to be president. I mean, there should be at least some sense that, oh my God, America's going to elect a convicted felon to be president. A convicted felon can still run. I
Well,
mean,
see, here's the other thing that irritates me. I agree with you, man, but here's what irritates me. They
oh, oh, okay. What irritates you? Tell me.
it's not a good look. Who
Yeah.
the hell cares about how it looks? I'm worried about the functions of government, man. I'm worried about other people thinking they can get away with stuff because Trump showed them the path, right? They can
Yeah.
just play this game, and they're going to get screwed anyway because
Well,
they don't have the money,
look,
you know.
you're right though, but this is the thing. This Trump is showing. You said Trump is showing the path.
Yes,
He is letting people know this is how politics is played now, and
he's
this
letting
is how.
people know how weak the Constitution is, my
Right,
brother.
right, and this is how we can. This is how you can get over. You challenge, challenge, challenge,
That's right.
and when Trump goes, because he's an old man. He said today, "Oh, I'm not so old," but he is an old man, and when he goes, you got to fear the next generation of Trumps, and
Yeah,
that is people like Senator Cotton and people like Ted Cruz, who's sort of lying in wait, and and Marjorie Taylor Greene, for goodness sakes. I mean, she could. I mean, all those people who are Trumpsters who are trying to get, or if Trump goes, who gets his people, who inherits, the
no,
MAGA.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, just she's mean, okay, and she's semi-intelligent, but she's
Yeah.
not really politically smart, okay.
Oh well, that's to our advantage then. She doesn't know.
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, I'm saying that she will continue to be a minor player. You do have to worry about the Rubios and the Cruzes,
Oh
okay,
yeah,
people like
yeah,
that, and Cotton, as you say,
right.
because they're not stupid, okay.
They're
They're
lying in wait. They're lying in wait,
and
and because
going to use the system for whatever opportunities it presents.
yeah.
Okay,
Oh hey,
they're also not interested in the Constitution.
yeah.
Okay.
The other people to worry about are people like Tim Scott and Byron
Oh,
Donald.
oh yeah, sure,
You got to worry about them
sure.
because and Nikki Haley,
Okay.
who is just blindly ambitious. She
Yeah,
dumped on Trump.
I think she's done. I don't. I think people on the extreme side aren't going to trust her anymore, and
Oh well,
people.
if I were Nikki Haley and I heard that, I would say, "You're not going to trust me." Here's Donald Trump, 34 convictions, and you're trusting him. How I'm an angel compared to
Yeah, but
Donald Trump.
she turned on the guy that they trust.
Oh well,
I mean, so there she is, in essence, is in the same position as Cheney.
oh yeah, Cheney,
Yeah,
who
Cheney acted out of principle,
yeah,
right? And Haley is acting out of sheer freaking opportunism, right?
right, and they're both kind of like, where are we? We're kind of we're not really, in the promised land, but
Oh no.
Haley is closer to promised land than Cheney.
Well,
Cheney,
no, Cheney just. It was like watching people watching someone commit political suicide.
She
She
was
knew what she was doing. She knew she
well.
was,
Look,
and I admire her for that. I really,
yeah,
I hate everything she stands for.
but
Otherwise, all the
but,
policies.
but wouldn't you rather see someone like Cheney, who is honest and at least a Republican,
He's
who
standing on
understands?
principles that we're all
Yeah,
familiar with, even before the Reagan era, right? But
yeah,
when Nixon got elected, I said, "Look, man, all you got to do is look at the guy, and he's not trustworthy. Just
yeah.
you could feel it, right? And
Well,
and especially when he was so frustrated over losing to Kennedy, right? And,
well,
and you could feel it. And
yeah,
so,
but now we have a president who is convicted. He's
yes,
worse. He's worse than Nixon.
yeah,
Trump
yeah,
is
yes,
worse than Nixon.
oh, by
34
far,
times,
by far.
4 times worse than
Nixon
Nixon.
Nixon was not an internationalist idiot, right?
Yeah,
Friggin' Trump is just into the fascists.
yeah.
He's just into. He just loves that stuff. That's where he's at, man.
Well, the thing is, yeah, I mean, Nixon would never do a Helsinki with Putin. He
Oh
would never.
no, no
He,
way,
he
no
never
way.
walk. Would never walk the DMZ
Nixon did a
with.
lot of smart stuff.
Yeah,
Nixon did a lot of smart things when it came to international issues, and he had a smart guy advising him. Don't forget, Kissinger was a freaking. He became a Playboy hero, right?
yeah,
I mean, he was. In fact, he was hanging out in the same joints Trump was
yeah.
when he was a young man in New York, right? He was. He
Yeah.
was.
Well, all right. So look, but Kissinger was an academic fascist, but
Yeah,
that's all right.
yes, he was. And he
Academic
was
fascist
smart. He
warmonger,
was
but that's all
smart. They
right.
knew how to work it. They knew
Yeah.
how to work it, man.
And it's all in the name ultimately of self-interest, right? Not
Yeah.
not the good for society. I mean, my self-interested lens, and everyone in society must live by it. That is the Trump way, and it shouldn't be in a democracy. I mean, but
Yeah, but when you have undereducated population with the,
oh
with the right to vote,
yeah,
okay, that's part of the problem. You got I was amazed at how little emphasis has been put on civics, what we used to call
oh
civics when
yeah,
we were kids. All right?
yeah.
There's just not enough of that, man. And
We
and,
we don't care.
and
People don't care. Hey, look, I was in Orlando, and it's I was in the blue part of the red state there, and there very few people want to talk politics because they know that in Florida, very conservative state, they don't want to get into it, right? And so they kind of ignore it so they can just get along. But it's wrong because then you get a false sense of that everyone is united, and they're not. They're not. But no one was talking about the trial. No one was really into it. Um, I was there during the Cohen testimony and Stormy Daniels' testimony, and no one was talking about it. They should have been. They should have been,
yeah.
but they weren't. And I
Well,
trusted even here. There was something like 10 million watching MSNBC, Fox, CNN, for the verdict yesterday, 10, 12 million, something like that. That's not that many,
no.
really, when you think of it about it.
No, they're not that dedicated. They're not that committed to it. And that's another thing that worries me is that we keep saying democracy is at stake.
Yeah.
I don't think the majority of Americans feel that strongly. I don't think they really feel that. I don't think they fear it.
I think you're right. I think, I hear people saying, oh, yeah, democracy is a thing. We get it. We get it. But tell me about inflation. Tell me about the price of
Yeah,
gas.
that's
Tell me
right.
about the price of eggs.
That's right.
Self interest again, pocketbook issues, but they diminish the real threat, which is, hey, you don't get eggs, you don't get gas if you don't have a democracy, because then people will determine who gets the gas and who gets the eggs.
You
And it's
you
not
you you touched on it very early in our conversation when you said that it's only things of immediate reference. I call it the tip of the nose thinking. Right. This is people. You say they don't realize that there's a real problem until it hits them in the face, and I
gonna,
agree with that completely. That is the problem.
yeah,
People people don't pay enough attention. Now, one of the things that I drill my students on is the contest between three people in the establishment of American society, and then the structure of the constitutional structure of government, right? And that is Jefferson, Adams, and Madison. Okay, and two of those guys said the greatest problem at that time in American society is that a democratic republic. Jefferson kept arguing you need education. It has to absolutely, and he was intimating that you need to have public free education. That's what he was intimating. Okay. So that's one thing. The one thing that he agreed with Adams on up front was that the American electorate, the people who have the right and vote to vote because they're citizens, don't understand commerce. They don't understand the economy. All right. That's exactly what we're confronting now. They keep blaming Biden and the Democrats for what's happening in the economy, and they don't understand that's capitalism, fools.
Yeah.
That's, you can't get a house in California. Hey, there's not enough housing being built. What the
Yeah.
hell's that? That's capitalism. You
Yeah.
know, okay, they're complaining. Wow, little one-story, three-bedroom houses in Silicon Valley are $2 million. Yes, that's capitalism. Somebody has got the money to be able to pay that price, so they're getting $2 million for those houses. Hey, don't you
Yeah.
wish? Okay, well, we're holding on to one of our other houses, man, because
Yeah, I know. Look, California is a 10% bank.
hey,
You can move to Ohio where it's cheaper. You can get a smaller house or a bigger house
uh,
cheaper in any number of places in the country, but you're not going to get the kind of gains and not the kind of returns. So,
yeah.
yeah, look,
So
yeah,
so here we are, right? You got people blaming the wrong people, right, for the way their lives are being affected. Okay, and then Biden now and the Democrats are worried about attacking the big companies, especially the oil companies and all the rest of that stuff, because they know that those companies are actually using the circumstance to boost prices just
oh,
a little bit.
yeah. Well, you know what gets me? What gets me is that I was reading some articles just within the last day or so that showed that big money Republicans are now coming in with the money to
Support
to
Trump.
support Trump
Yes,
and to
absolutely.
make up for
That's
the short,
capitalism.
yeah,
That's
make up
capitalism. That's
make up for the
capitalism, and they
short.
were assisted. They were assisted by the Supreme Court of the United States with the Citizens United decision.
Yeah. And then, and all the stuff that's happening now that you brought up the Supreme Court, where, Roberts now appears that he's backing Alito. I mean, this is bad. This is like every form or every branch of government is infected in some way. The judiciary, the legislative branch, and the executive branch.
Yeah, and
Trump.
the irony is that the problem has been created by the people who are complaining about that lack of structure the most.
Oh
So
yeah.
the actual people who caused the problem are the ones who are arguing that the whole of structure of government is deteriorating to the point that we're engaged in a fascist government, right?
Well,
And they're the
yeah.
guys who did it. They're the
Wait,
guys who did it. Mitch
yeah,
McConnell. What did he say twice, right? You can't, we're too close to an election. We can't have a
yeah,
nomination at this point in
yeah,
time. We took, and what the last, the Barrett, right? Coney
yeah.
Barrett.
Tony Barrett.
How
Yeah.
long was it before the election? Wasn't it only like a month and a half before the
Yeah.
election that
Well,
they appointed her? You
this is the
know,
thing. When the Republicans are in
complete
charge,
hypocrisy, man.
yeah, when the Republicans in charge, they're as hypocritical as the Democrats they claim are hypocritical,
Well,
and then you have everyone playing the kind of game that people say, and people are just nodding to each other, saying, "Oh, is that the way we're going to play it? Is that the game?"
yeah,
And
yeah.
then we fall into a real shambles, and
He
I
should
don't
be
know.
called fascist. Mitch McConnell, to his face, should be called a fascist.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Well, all the Republicans, all the
Well,
Republicans.
yeah,
Well, not all, but not all. But to
yeah,
hear Donald Trump call Joe Biden a fascist, oh my God,
yeah. I
that
know.
is
And one of the criticisms from inside the Democratic Party, from the left, of course, right, is that he's too friendly towards the corporates, right? And
Oh
so
yeah, Biden.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, he gets it both ways, right?
yeah,
So yeah, Mitch McConnell was a fascist because he had that elitist power, not only as a senator but as the leader of the majority, right?
yeah,
And as the individual who could control checks and balances relationship between the executive office and Congress, right?
yeah,
And who now was also working to expand an already conservative majority Supreme Court. So there he is. What does that
yeah.
do? That favors the wealthy, right? That favors big business, and we're talking about megalopolies. We're
Yeah.
talking world scale megalopolies, and
Oh
that's
yeah,
what
yeah.
they're favoring. Okay,
Well, hey,
so
look. Go ahead.
and then to build up the military, right? So you got it all.
Yeah,
That is 2/3 of walking fascism right there.
yeah. That's a scary thing, and yet there are all these young people who are flocking to Trump, and the black tabulations, showing that under 50, 18 to 34, 18 to 49 blacks, how they have flocked to Trump, and they're almost like,
It's
you know,
mostly men.
yeah, mostly men, but it's almost like Tim Scott and Byron Donalds have become the clones, and they are the models for um, this black movement. I mean, but over 50, the over 50 blacks tend to be 80-90% Biden, 80-90% Democrat.
Sure,
Uh, it sounds like there is a generation gap
absolutely.
among people of color, and I
Yes,
will
there
include
is.
Latinos and even Asians. How do
There
we
is.
how do we fight this generation gap, and how did it get this way? How did we get this generation gap?
Uh,
Why
I
did
think.
people sort of just give up on the civil rights movement? Essentially,
Well,
that's what it is.
the frustration of the younger generations has been building up because it started with we can't even attain where our parents were at, right?
Uh,
How long have we been saying that? The
at least 20,
sociological observation, yeah,
he's
the
20.
sociological observation that the second generation, third generation, the children of a given era, right? Whether it be the millennials or Generation X or whatever, Y,
Right.
okay? That ever
Z.
since the yeah, ever since even our own kids, right? And I'm a boomer, okay? I
Mhm.
don't know if you consider yourself a boomer, but I'm a boomer,
I'm a boomerless boomer. I'm a good one. I'm a good boomer.
and even yeah, from if you extend the generational thing to 20 years, right? Easily you're a boomer because you're within my range anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm a sort of early mid boomer, right?
Yeah.
48. So born in 1948. Even our kids, and I'm talking about people who got married in their 20s and therefore when they're in their 40s their kids are in college, finishing college and going out and getting gigs. Even those kids haven't been able to realize the standard of living enjoyed by their parents.
Yeah.
There we
I get
go.
I
That's
get that.
one generation removed from us.
Yeah.
So it's not an exaggeration to say that the boomer generation was the last of the major generations to share in the improvement of status, socioeconomic status, right, in American society.
Civil, and it's because of civil rights.
Yes,
Because of civil rights.
absolutely.
And then now you got a new generation that disdains civil rights or takes it for granted. And they're going to the other side that wants to get rid of civil rights.
And okay, so here's where my position is. I think if Trump wins, okay, the country gets what they deserve. All right. I don't know personally how I'm going to live, my life. I'm fairly safe because I'm in San Francisco, right? Our other property is a little bit further east, but it's okay there. It's not bad. It's Solano County. It's right next to Napa and Sonoma. But uh, it's not bad. Okay, but it's going to be hard to live in American society. I mean, there's racism is going to be afoot. I think a lot of the people who vote for Trump,
Mm.
and even if they don't vote for Trump, even if Trump loses, the issue of race is going to be a prime issue again. Okay,
Well, yeah, because the Trump losers are going to battle back harder to
absolutely,
win back
absolutely.
whatever standing they lost.
Okay,
Well,
and my message to I know we're kind of assuming that we're reaching an Asian American population with your blog, but
yeah,
be warned, be warned that
yeah.
the reactions are going to be like those reactions that you suffered when COVID was hit. Okay, when
Ah,
we were hit with COVID, there are a lot of people in the medical professions that were trying to save lives, and they were attacked, assaulted, and in some instances killed. Right,
mm,
uh, and they were wearing medical apparel.
yeah.
So it was clear that they were Asian people who were engaged in some degree, to some degree, in some medical profession. Okay.
So you think that could happen?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I
But
mean,
the event is
without COVID, just a
yes,
kind of a
because
general racism toward it.
people yes, because people keep ignoring that. You gotta look at the entire history of the treatment of
Yeah,
Asians
yeah,
in American society. When people think race, they think black right away. You
yeah.
know, okay. In more recent years, they think black and brown right away. Okay. Students are surprised when I say, "Okay, what's the other group that was most mentioned as suffering under traditional racism? Long-term racism ever since the beginning of the republic."
Asian, Asian.
And well, no, it's Native American.
Oh, Native. Oh, yeah. Sorry,
And
sorry,
so,
Native Americans.
well,
Sorry,
they missed. They students
the
miss it too.
originals.
Students miss it as well. Okay,
Yeah,
and so they say, well, but they didn't suffer slavery. I say, yeah, but they suffered genocide,
genocide, taking away of lands, being stripped of lands, dignity.
long term.
Yeah,
They were cheated by everybody, large
yeah.
and small landowners, by everybody.
So
So
racism's coming back if Trump wins.
it's never left.
All right,
It's
but what?
it's going to it's going the degree of expression of racism, right,
Mhm.
is going to increase. It's like turning up the heat, okay,
Well,
and the likelihood of violence
yeah.
also arises. So
Well,
you got
what
to watch
about
out.
how did the Tim Scotts and the Byron Donalds live with each other, live with themselves, if that's the consequence for people of color?
Because they don't give a
Yeah,
animal feces. They don't really care. They are so opportunistic that all they want to do is line up with the power. Okay, so whatever they have to do to contort themselves into an image that is not only satisfactory, okay, or tolerated by power, right, but that endears them to power. That's
yeah.
what they want.
That's all it is. I mean, that's what Haley's, her flip flop. That's all that is. Power. She got ambitious. She tried to win on her own. She lost, and now she wants power.
She is ambitious, and I mean, remember how the guts move for her was the flag issue,
Oh yeah,
right?
like
Kind
yeah,
of funny, right? It's kind of ironic, right? Because we got SCOTUS with a flag issue, right?
yeah.
And he says, hey, it was my wife.
I know. Alito throws his wife under the bus. That's gonna. He's gonna get a letter from the Pope about
Yeah,
marriage.
yeah.
About
If
marriage.
there's a flag that shows people with this
Hey, so,
with
so, so Dan,
with shriveled scrota,
so Dan, look.
she's gonna fly a different flag, man.
Yeah. Hey, look. I want to finish up on Trump a little bit.
Oh
And
no, how
that,
do we do that?
well, and that is, I guess he could still. We did mention if he could still go to jail. He could still go to
Yeah,
jail.
he can still go to jail. I think they'll threaten him with jail. They'll give him probation. I'm sorry, promotion,
Right.
probation. He'll
Yeah.
get probation. He might even get house arrest. Right? He
Yeah.
might get house. It's not arrest anymore when you've already been convicted. It's house detention. Right?
Yeah.
He could get house detention. It would drive him nuts. Okay, and not only house detention, but he could also be subjected to conditions of under that would be managed by his parole officer. Can you imagine being the parole officer of the former president of the United States, man?
No,
Has
I
been
think.
found guilty of 34 felonies.
Look, I think one of the, I'd like to see Trump just treated like anyone else. I mean, not get any,
Rikers, Rikers.
not get, not get any special privileges, but because if he were just a regular Filipino or an African American, he would not. He would
There's
not
no
get
such
any.
thing as a regular Filipino or African American. We're irregular because we ain't white.
Yeah.
You
Well,
gotta
that's the
keep
thing.
you gotta keep that in mind, man.
Well, that's the thing. He is. This is his white privilege.
Oh
This
no
is
shit.
Yeah. This is his white privilege. This is white privilege in action. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And what happened to his other? Remember his early criticisms of Merchan?
Oh yeah.
Was
What?
he's Mexican, so
Oh yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
it's like, what did
Well,
everybody forget about that? You know what?
well, no, there was another judge on the Trump University trial that he was critical of because he was, I think Rashawn is from Colombia, I think, or Latino or something.
Oh yeah. You're right. He is. No,
But
it wasn't. There was a guy with. Oh, you're right.
yeah,
His name started with an E.
there was another, the Trump,
Was it the Trump University
Trump
trial?
University case. Yeah, he
Okay.
was
Okay.
he was Mexican, I believe, and he stood up to Trump, and Trump got a judgment against him, and was forced to pay. So I
Yeah.
mean,
Well,
here's the
yeah.
thing.
Not only
I
was he forced to pay, the whole institution was wiped out. There's
Yeah,
no
right.
Trump University.
But you look at Trump's record so far. He is liable uh, for sexual assault, essentially rape. In the civil case, he's got the business records case that that could force him out of New York. He's got this case that the 34 convictions. He's got three other felony. I mean, this is a guy who wants to be president. He should be. I, I mean,
Hey,
how does
you're gonna get. I'm gonna agree with you all the way. He should never have been president in the first freaking
never,
place.
never,
But but
never
but this is America, and
this
people
America?
got the right to vote, and
Yeah,
so we have to deal with that. We have
and
to
they
deal
won't
with
vote
the
for
fact.
you or me. They won't vote
Yeah,
for you, but
well,
they'll
and
vote for Trump.
if the young people, hesitate or they don't even vote down ballot, right? Okay, you don't want to vote for Joe, fine, but vote down ballot, vote local. Let's
Oh
get
yeah,
more people in Congress, right? That kind of thing. If they're going to stay away from that, then they get what they deserve, and they ain't gonna. It's not going to get better for you, folks.
yeah.
I'm going to
Well,
tell you right now, it ain't going to get better for you.
I hope the message gets out there clearly because I don't think people don't hear it until maybe September, October.
They don't pay attention. If they don't pay attention to, they barely pay attention to anything except polls. Okay,
Yeah,
they don't pay attention for sure to policy and how it affects them, unless it's something really simple like
yeah,
Gavin Newsom has this tax on gas, right? And they keep raising the gas taxes, at a time when we're inflationary budgets and we're hurting.
mhm.
Okay. Do you see the Doonesbury cartoon from I think 2 weeks ago? It might
Yeah.
have,
Doonesbury. I don't even read Doonesbury anymore. I can't. Is he still? I guess Gary
yeah, yeah.
Travis.
He's still the top of the front page of the Chronicle Comics. That's
Really?
great. Yeah,
God, I don't even.
but it's a good one. It's a good one.
All right,
And
I'll check it out.
it
I'll
kind
check
of
it out.
it kind of explains where America is at right now. Why do people who actually have been injured by the actual Republican policies,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Actual Republican policies
yeah.
d- at all levels,
Flux.
local, state, and federal, right?
Yeah.
They throw money at Trump,
Yeah. Well, this
and
has always been the case. Ever since 2016, really. I mean, people. Why are people voting against their own self-interest? The more a politician is self-interested, people will vote. Will get out. They'll vote against their self-interest for that guy, and that's Trump.
evidently,
Yeah.
but
That is like,
well,
wow.
so then the question is always why,
Yeah.
and the answer is because these people tell them what they want to hear.
Yeah.
It's that freaking simple.
Yeah.
They tell them what they want to hear, and
He's a wiener.
they hang it all on the liberals.
He's a wiener. Yeah.
You know,
Well, Dan, I think we should end it there. You know, I'm so glad to come back and talk to you about this, and I knew that I'd be back. Well, actually, I wasn't sure when we get a verdict. I wasn't sure we get it this week. I'm
I
glad.
thought I for sure thought we would get it this week, and I thought it would be a good indication if they came back early,
Yeah,
and so that but I didn't think we were going to get 34.
I thought it would be mixed. Also,
I thought it would be mixed.
I
I
thought
thought it would be
I
mixed.
thought I thought we'd get it today, but we
Yeah.
got it yesterday, and now forever for Asian Pacific, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month, the most newsworthy thing to happen in our month is the use of the death of a thousand cuts legal strategy
Yeah,
for killing Donald Trump. Which now, come on, you got to admit that's racist. When the Trump people call it the death of a thousand cuts legal strategy, that's racist. Just like saying paddy wagon or someone welching on a bed or someone chewing down on a prize. I mean, that is a racist thing, right?
yeah, okay.
I mean, death by a
It
thousand
is.
cuts.
Okay. How do you define racism, man? That's where we got to go. Okay.
I think.
It's the exercise of power, right,
Mm,
by people who have power, right,
mm.
based on the assertion of their own superiority
Ah,
over
ah,
others,
but
racial superiority over others.
how
Okay.
about how about just the ignorance of using racial terms unnecessarily to describe something? Like, for example, Chinese fire drill.
Yeah.
Remember
Okay.
how offensive
Okay.
Chinese fire drill
Yeah. Yeah.
is?
Uh huh.
I mean, now no one uses it. Or to say, a word as innocent as, chinks in the armor. Ha ha ha. That's a pun,
Okay.
right?
Right. Right.
And
Right.
people don't use it anymore because we've heard it before and we know it's racist. And now I think death by a thousand cuts, if we understand the origins of that,
Yeah. See,
then we should be.
for me, it's a question of intent. I think these people are so stupid.
Mm,
They're culturally ignorant. All right. So to attribute, the degree of racism that I think you're asserting, right,
yeah.
is a step. It's not a whole step out there, but it's a stretch. It's a little bit of a stretch, and that's the
But
only reason I'm laughing at. Now, is
yeah,
it in fact racist by de minimis terms? The answer is yes, but they're ignorant fools. Okay, so they're going to do
exactly. And that,
it.
that was my point. That their ignorance shows their racism. But if they were truly sensitive on Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month, they wouldn't use that. They would say, hey, he's using a kitchen sink approach. He's using a throw it against the wall and see what sticks approach. To say death by a thousand cuts, it sounds like you're, quoting something from history, but you're really using a racist term unnecessarily. That's my point. A
Well,
racist term, a
okay,
racial
well,
term, a racial term,
yeah, there you
unnecessary.
go. But
A
see,
racial.
you're right that it originated in Asian cultures, though. Okay,
Yeah,
it wasn't. In order for it to be fully racist, it would have to have been. It would have to have originated right among the people who actually coined the term. The term is actually reflected, as you said earlier, of a Chinese
torture.
term.
It's a
Okay,
system of torture.
yes, and
Well, how
so
about this? If someone said, "Oh, to see the Republicans, uh, lick or kiss Donald Trump's butt," he's like being a coolie. Now
yeah,
that
yeah, no, that's
that's
definitely
a
yeah,
racist term. That's a
yeah,
racial
and it
term.
originated in Asia.
Yeah,
Both South Asians and Chinese share the same sound word, and it
yeah,
has the same meaning.
yeah.
You know,
So I just
to
I just think that, all right, it's not. Oh, I say it's subconsciously racist, but if we're going to move forward and identify these things, it's not necessarily being politically correct, but it's
yeah,
being
yeah.
sensitive.
No, I agree
It's,
with you that it's racist. Okay, I'm just saying that why would we expect them to actually be sensitive? See,
no,
I don't
yeah,
expect them to be sensitive at all because
yeah,
they don't see color. They don't
yeah.
see color, man.
Of course, let us see them for what they are, which is oblivious.
Well, back
Oblivious.
in the day, when we were in college,
Yeah.
well, when I was in high school and in college, right in the
Oh,
'60s, you know, they didn't see color
oh
because
yeah.
because we were invisible.
Oh yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, they
Now
didn't
we.
see color. Yeah, because we were invisible, man. We kept on saying, "No, no, I'm not Chinese. No,
Yeah.
no, I'm not Japanese.
Yeah.
No, I'm Filipino. What's a
Yeah.
Filipino? You know."
Yeah. They don't know. They don't know.
Yeah,
It's
what's a
ignorance.
Filipino? And the older generation knew, right? Because a
Yeah.
lot of them were veterans, and some of them did their duty in the Pacific Theater, so they all knew what a Filipino was, right?
All right. Well,
But,
I
but
just wanted to point out because probably no. I mean, I saw Paula Reed on CNN. She's a great reporter, and she was quoting insiders in the Trump defense team saying, "Hey, we're using a death by a thousand cuts defense." And I said, "Wow, wow."
wow,
Now, what if it was more Indian? We're doing a head scalping type of strategy. Would that be? Oh, Native Americans would be upset. We're using a whipping post type of strategy. We're going to tie him up to a post and like whip Michael Cohen to death. Rip apart his credibility. I mean, you just
we're gonna beat them up so bad they're gonna commit seppuku.
yeah, yeah, or something like that. I'm just saying that there's no reason to go racial on it. But to me, for people who know about the term,
It's part of white nationalism, though, man.
oh yeah,
They want to use the N word. They're
yeah,
pissed off that they can't use the N word without
N-word.
some cost, right? You know,
That's true. That's true.
you
And
know. So
instead of using the N word, they could just say Tim Scott.
yeah.
He's our guy. Byron Donalds. He's our guy.
Listen,
Tim Scott.
I had a student, a black student in one of my recent classes,
Yeah.
criticize me live, right, because I used the word Negro.
Negro. Well,
I
Negroes
used
kind
the
of
word Negro, and I was using it in the context of Jim Crow, explaining Jim Crow laws, right?
Negro.
And the legal language that was being used at the time
It was
was
Negro.
Negro. Okay, and then he said, that's a racist term, and you shouldn't use it at all. And I said, what if I am referring to a historical use of the term,
Yeah.
and that term was actually the alternative
Yeah.
to the truly racist convention, right?
Yeah.
Okay, then you're going to criticize me for using it in that way. And I said, you know what? There's a there was a professor from one of the southern universities, his PhD in history, and a liberal, a progressive, and the guy wanted to go back and he wanted to edit out all versions of Mark Twain's
Oh,
books.
Huckleberry Finn.
Yeah, to because the
N
term
word Finn.
N word was in there,
Yeah.
and I said, you know how freaking silly that is. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like saying, okay, I want to edit the Bible, especially the Old Testament, because of its misogynistic references to women. The story of Esther, whither thou goest.
Yeah. Well, look, I, yeah, you
Yeah,
know, the
that's
N word
where
in,
people are at. I mean, and so the people are saying, "Hey, they can't. He's not doing enough on Gaza. I'm gonna vote for the other guy." Really? What do you think Trump is going to do about Gaza?
well, that's the thing. Well, listen, Dan, always nice to talk to you. I appreciate you coming on and
Well,
uh, uh,
it's always fun. It's
chiming
really
in
fun.
on all these issues because no one asks us. I mean, this is the thing. No one ever asks us for our opinion. Asian Americans, you won't see Asian Americans on the TV shows talking about these things because apparently none of us really care about this. But there are a few of us who do, and we're gonna get our voices out and we're gonna tell people what we think, and that's important. That's important because in lieu of that, people think we have no opinions, and that is far from the
Well,
truth.
back in the day when we were struggling along and supporting the civil rights movement,
Yeah,
other people would say to us, other racial groups would say to us, "You ain't got no problems. You don't
yeah,
have any problems."
I remember. Yeah,
Okay, and I'd say, "Okay, let's try this." I actually was confronted gently, but again erroneously, by the provost. I won't say which one
Mm,
of SF State. That's the second in command, right? He's the
yeah.
vice president, and very a great guy. I really admired this guy. He was strong and all the rest of that stuff.
However,
But he was Italian ancestry, and he said, how could you compare, the situation with the Asians to the things that the Italians suffered, and I said, oh, I guess because you don't know any Chinese jokes or Japanese jokes or
yeah,
Asian jokes like there are Italian jokes, and he goes, are you really going to go there? And I said, yeah, what the hell, the best Italian jokes I ever heard came from Italians.
yeah.
you know you know
Well, yeah, it's not. It's a jokes, and it's also a lack of understanding of the history.
Yeah, so
Finding
I showed him the history, and he thought about it. Next time he saw us, he said, "Yeah, I checked it out." And he goes, "I was really impressed. I had no idea." He goes, "It's not just the individual actions against particular ethnic groups. It's like it's whole race wide. It's everybody, right?" And I said, "Yeah, because we're all Oriental,
Yeah.
I said, and
Well,
that's the polite word, we're all categorized as one big heaping mess of yellow.
yeah, the ignorance is really deep. So, well, listen, Dan, thank you again. Uh, I
Hey,
appreciate you coming on. Let's,
congratulations on a successful tour of the East Coast.
yeah, well, thank you, and let's, we'll talk again soon. Let's see what happens with the convicted felon and how many times he gets on camera to talk about.
Yeah, well, they won't start talking about the opportunities for appeal. I mean, it is possible that he could do a series of it, assuming that he loses, right, at the state level. He could do as many as three separate appeals, and then eventually confront this at SCOTUS, at the Supreme
Wow.
Court of the United States. That would be really interesting, but that's not going to happen until after the freaking election.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so
and look, and he have very. I mean, his standing does not improve if he loses. I mean,
yeah,
yeah,
I
it
don't think it's
changes
going to change.
equation.
I don't think it's going to change. You
Yeah,
got you got the big money, you got dark money, big money coming in. Like you said, they're
yeah,
they're all coming back, and they know that it's not going to be good under Biden, and it's going to be very favorable under Trump.
yeah,
And so these people are looking for individual, right, favor from Trump, and you
yeah.
can get that if you're a billionaire and you donate to his stuff. You can
And
definitely get
that's hap- and the big DEI guy, Bill Ackman, he's out there already.
Hey,
So, I'm
hey.
giving.
So what? And now, is that greater degree of fascism or lesser degree of fascism?
No, it's just corporate fascism, right?
Well, the only thing that's missing is the police state,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, he'll
And
get
so,
that.
and,
He'll get
and
that.
so, the third leg of fascism is going to be what he says he wants to do, which
Yeah,
is, he keeps projecting by saying the president. This is all Biden's conspiracy to
yeah,
to use the DOJ as a political weapon, right?
yeah,
And what were they doing? I mean, how were charges brought against all of the guys that he pardoned, right, in the first freaking place? Okay,
yeah,
okay, and why was it that Cohen, right, was hauled back into court and then thrown back into a federal prison, right, and given 51 straight days of solitary confinement? Under whose administration did that stuff happen, man?
yeah.
This stuff is really crazy. It's really nuts. And the only way that it works is that the people who vote for Trump just deny all of it. It's just a blanket friggin' denial of all of it.
And they can't. They can't. All right.
All right, man. Sorry
Dan,
to keep you.
no problem. No, we'll something to think about. Dan Gonzalez, my friend, professor of ethnic studies, College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University, professor emeritus.
Yes, sir. I'm preparing to teach a summer course.
Oh, great. All right. Yeah,
Yeah.
at state.
Yep.
Oh, wow. In
Yep.
what?
Same stuff. The same stuff that
Oh,
we're talking about.
all right. There it is. There it is.
Politics, government, a little bit of law thrown in. A lot of law
Oh,
actually thrown in.
take his course if you're.
You
You,
got to pay, money. It's a summer session, so it's not
oh,
the cheap.
somewhere. Oh,
It's
okay.
not a cheap one. It's
Oh,
not
okay.
cheap.
All right, there it is.
All
All
right.
right, good luck, Professor. All right, there he is. Dan Gonzalez, my friend. Ah, always good to talk to Dan. Always good to talk to Dan. I saw some Filipinos in Orlando. They came up to me and said, "Oh, I tell my story, which is essentially Filipino American history." And they said, "Oh, I did not know that story. I did not," because they were like, they come to America in the 80s or the 90s or the 2000s, and they just, I did not know it was like that for the people in the 20s, 1920s. The 2020s, we have it pretty good. 1920s, not so good. Anyway, I'm talking about my show, Emil Amok, Los NPR host, wily Filipino vegan transit. I'm going to do it sometime again in San Francisco, but I'm going to do something. I'm going to do a stand-up thing in Seattle coming up in June, and I will do my show again sometime in June here in the Bay Area. So watch for that. In the meantime, I think we're going to call it a week. It's good being back. A lot easier to do my show from the confines of my COVID closet. We're here Monday through Friday, sometimes live, sometimes recorded. This is where we do the secret podcast. We don't like. I should put it where we podcast, but instead I put it on YouTube. Go to Emil Amok or go to YouTube at hashtag or Emil Amok at emilamok.com at youtube.com at Emil Amok1. That's where we do the show. Or you can see it live. Or you see it recorded for that matter. And also on Facebook, fb.com/Emil Amok or Emil Guillermo Media. I think that's it. Or Emil Guillermo. We'll play it. Anyway, that's it. Have yourselves there are some people who have a great weekend. They'll say, "Oh, we got 34 convicted." I am not partying. You won't see me. I wasn't happy. I was actually kind of sad because I did not see people really come together and say, "Hey, democracy! Hey, rule of law!" I didn't see that. That troubles me. So take the time. The rest of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month. We got about a few more hours to just think about it. Join me again on Monday. We end every show I do with a sense of meditation. One of the things I did when I was in Florida, I saw my guru. He's really more yogi than guru, but I don't do yoga. And just to show you how bad I am, I tried to hang out and do yoga with a few people in this class. I didn't last 5 minutes. I'm just not a yoga guy. But I then went for the talk. Temple of the Universe in Florida. It's great. And that was worth the trip. Aside from performing, worth the trip to go to Florida to see my yogi. And so I like to end with a little meditation. Loving kindness, metta, METTA. This is from another meditation teacher, Sharon Salzberg. The loving kindness meditation. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Hey, my cholesterol level is really low, 180. It's great. Vegan diet, that helps. Hey, listen, till next time, Emil Guillermo here. Emil Amok to you. See you again soon. Till then.